Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Pakistan is observing National Defence Day to pay tribute to its armed forces for thwarting India's attack and safeguarding Pakistan's sovereignty in the 1965 war. In his message, President Arif Alvi said Pakistan makes serious efforts towards securing peace in the region, but India keeps hostile designs. While Prime Minister Imran Khan said in 1965, a nation and the military proved that it is not the size but the courage and devotion that matters the most. Addressing a ceremony at the General Headquarters in Rawalpindi, Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa said the army is fully prepared to thwart any threat to the country. Islamabad has summoned a senior Indian diplomat to register strong protest over ceasefire violations along the line of control. The Foreign Ministry says an unarmed civilian was seriously wounded by India's unprovoked fighting in Rakchakri sector. The US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad has reached Qatar to push for intra-Afghan negotiations. The US State Department says all the sides must remove obstacles for talks and seize the opportunity for peace. Earlier, the Taliban also said their senior delegation is in Qatar to resolve issues and a date for the talks will be announced soon. In the United Kingdom, one person has been killed and 7 others wounded in a series of stabbings in Birmingham. Police say a murder inquiry has been launched and there is no indication that the attacks were terror-related. But Britain's Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has urged the public to stay vigilant. Mexico says it has recorded nearly 123,000 extra deaths during the pandemic, along with another 67,000 confirmed COVID-19 fatalities. Meanwhile, India has registered 1,065 deaths and more than 90,000 infections overnight, the world's highest single-day surge so far. In Pakistan, the outbreak continues to decline as the country recorded 2 deaths overnight, while active cases have reduced to 6,269. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 879,000 lives and infected over 26.8 million people. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan is observing National Defence Day to pay tribute to its armed forces for thwarting India's attack and safeguarding Pakistan's sovereignty in the 1965 war. The day began with a 31-gun salute in Islamabad and 21-gun salutes in the provincial capitals. Special ceremonies were held at the mausoleum of the founder of the nation, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and the Pakistan military's general headquarters. In his message, President Arif Alvi said Pakistan makes serious efforts towards securing peace in the region, but India keeps hostile designs. While Prime Minister Imran Khan said in 1965, a nation and military proved that it is not the size but the courage and devotion that matters the most. In Rawalpindi, Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa laid a wreath at the Martyrs Monument at General Headquarters. In Pakistan, Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa said the army is fully prepared to thwart any threat to the country. He was addressing a ceremony on the occasion of Defence Day at the General Headquarters in Rawalpindi. He said India's unilateral actions in occupied Jammu and Kashmir is jeopardizing peace and security in the region. He said Pakistan played a key role in the Afghan peace process. As Pakistan celebrates Defence Day today to mark its valiant rebuke in the 1965 war against India, the conventional warfare between the two nuclear-capable neighbouring countries has transcended into many other trajectories. What in this report by Indus News correspondent Isa Naqvi.
On September 6th, Pakistan commemorates the incredible defence against Indian infiltration in the 1965 war. Which left New Delhi in tatters on the world stage. Despite massive advantage in numbers and superior war machinery, New Delhi was forced to lick its wounds in the face of Pakistan's stern response. But defense experts believe the warfare has completely changed since then. Lieutenant General retired Abdul Qayyum says in the world of nuclear deterrence, New Delhi has realized the need to change its tactics and has opened new fronts.
They have gone on to hybrid warfare. They don't want the kinetic war, and the conventional war is out. Only limited actions can take place. But now they do it the indirect strategy.
Lieutenant General Qayyum accused India of sponsoring terrorism on Pakistani soil from across the border under its policy of defensive offense.
It's a cyber war, it's an information war, it's a propaganda war, it is a psychological war, it is economic strangulation, and it is terrorism, state terrorism. India has launched from across the border or from the western border, taking Afghanistan as the launching pad.
1965 war veteran Lieutenant General retired Talat Masood says India has turned to economic warfare as a tool against Pakistan to destabilize it.
There has been a fundamental transformation as far as warfare is concerned. The main challenge now is that both are nuclear countries. So it's very difficult to really think in terms of a conventional warfare. Their motive is to bleed Pakistan economically, so that a large number, divisions and forces are deployed on the border.
Defense analysts across the board say while there remains a constant threat of a full-scale war due to the issue of Indian-occupied Kashmir, only a durable and sustainable solution to the outstanding disputes can ensure peace between the neighboring nuclear powers. Reporting for Indus News, Isa Naqvi, Islamabad.
And now we are joined by defense analyst, retired Lieutenant General Naeem Khalid Lodhi. Thank you for your time at Indus News. What was Pakistan's advantage that thwarted Indian aggression in the 1965 war?
As far as I remember, I was in class 6th, I think, but because my father was also in the army, so I had a fair idea what all was going on, and we could see that. I think the first thing that I remember was that it is not the armies that go to war, it is a nation that goes to war, and that is what happened. I mean, otherwise also the towns of Sialkot and Lahore, they were just close. We know that they are close to the international border. People were reaching even in the trenches along with the soldiers and, raising their morale and all that. So, and on the other hand, what because later on I studied this war also and carried out comparison of the training standards and the equipment standards. I think we were less in numbers, all right. But as far as the training is concerned, it was superb. And one small example, we all know that Major Aziz Bhatti Shaheed, he lost his life while using artillery. He was an infantry officer and he was directing artillery fire, which was not his forte, but he had gone through the training and he knew that how to bring on artillery fire on the on the enemy. And if you remember, they lost total loss of tanks was 200 and something, more than 200 as far as Indian forces are concerned. More than 100 of them were lost in Sialkot sector only. That means that once tanks were fighting eyeball to eyeball, tank to tank, our people gave a better account of themselves by targeting them and by not missing the targets. So even the training was good, and the morale I've already talked about. I think there was a lot of difference Once we heard the songs that were coming from our radio, nothing of that sort we could hear from All India Radio. And even at that time, the TV was also playing its role. So I think from the worldly standards, from the material standards, also we were not bad. But we had a clear-cut advantage as far as morale is concerned, as far as training is concerned. I think these were the two basic multipliers, I would say, as the question you have asked.
So, General Lodi, has the nuclear deterrence eliminated the possibility of a full-blown armed conflict between Pakistan and India?
We know that the nature of war has changed over time, and war has gone into different spectrums. One, that it has gone to sub-conventional mode, that we call fifth generation war. You know, whatever happened with us in the last 20 years is a classic example of that, that how Tehreek-e-Taliban, Pakistan was, you know, it was, we were fighting them and who were sponsoring them and who were behind them. So that sort of war. And also this media war and psychological war, where you undermine the morale of your opponent, where you undermine this internal cohesion of a nation. So whereas I agree with you, and I would say that yes, a full-blown war may not be a possibility, but small skirmishes, conventional forces, you know, striking on each other in small areas like 5 kilometers up to 10 kilometers depth, that is still possible. Artillery firing, we all you know, experience every day. But the main threat is now from the fifth columnist. The main threat is from non-state actors. The main threat is from economic undermining, political undermining. So the nature of war has undergone a great transformation. And I keep on, you know, harping on this, you know, narrative that we need to have one central articulating headquarter from where we can fight this special type of war, because it is not all about kinetics. It is about psychological domain, it is about media, it is about economy, it is about politics, and also it is about military. So how to prosecute such a war, how to defend ourselves in such situation, I think for that we need to review our whole higher defense organization and how we are organized.
Lieutenant General Naeem Khalid Lodi, thank you for talking to Indus News. Really appreciate that. Now moving on, Islamabad has summoned a senior Indian diplomat to register strong protest over ceasefire violations along the line of control. The Foreign Ministry says an unarmed civilian was seriously wounded by India's unprovoked fighting in Rakchakri sector. The Foreign Office said Indian forces have been continuously targeting civilian populated areas with artillery, fire and heavy caliber mortars. He said the Indian diplomat was told such senseless acts are in clear violation of the 2003 ceasefire understanding. Islamabad pointed out that this year alone, India has murdered 17 innocent civilians and wounded 168 in over 2,000 ceasefire violations. The US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad is in Qatar to push for the intra-Afghan negotiations. Earlier, the Taliban also said their senior delegation is in Qatar to resolve issues and a date for the talks will be announced soon. The US State Department said it is time to start the talks as all sides have taken important steps to remove obstacles. The statement read, Afghan leaders must seize this historic opportunity for peace. Earlier, the Taliban announced that the 21-member team headed by Sheikh Molawi Abdul Hakim will represent the group at negotiations. Group's spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid said Sher Mohammad Abbas Tanakzai will be Hakim's deputy. Meanwhile, Afghanistan's National Reconciliation Council Chief Abdullah conditioned the negotiations with a ceasefire. He said the intra-Afghan talks will be carried out in several phases, with Qatar set to host the crucial dialogue. Now, Kabul says Taliban have killed 2 people in Parwan province's eastern district of Sayyid Khail. Parwan's governor Muhammad Osman Yar said one of the victims was working for the Bagram Intelligence Department, but he said identities of the deceased are yet to be confirmed. The governor said 2 militants came on a motorcycle to conduct the assassination and both escaped. The Taliban have not yet commented on this incident. The International Atomic Energy Agency says Iran is continuing to increase its stockpile of enriched uranium in violation of the 2015 nuclear deal. In a confidential report, the IAEA said that Tehran's stockpile now stands at over 10 times the agreed limit. The agency said Tehran's low enriched uranium stockpile grew by 533 kilograms to over 2,100 in just over 3 months. The 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action allows Tehran to only keep a stockpile of just over 200 kilograms. The report's release comes after IAEA officials inspected one of Iran's 2 former nuclear sites. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has bemoaned Tehran's friends for not standing up to the United States. In an interview, Rouhani said friends of Iran should have condemned sanctions on Tehran during the coronavirus pandemic. He said that if the US had a bit of humanity, it would have lifted sanctions on Iran for the duration of the health crisis. Rouhani said no one came to Iran's help in its fight against the pandemic. The United States has threatened to impose sanctions on whoever conducts business with Iran. Iran is the worst hit by the pandemic in the Middle East, with more than 22,000 deaths. Turkey's defense ministry says it has neutralized 320 terrorists in the ongoing Operation Claw Tiger in northern Iraq. In a statement, the ministry says search and screening activities, part of Operation Claw Tiger, have been completed in Haftanin region. Turkish forces also seized and destroyed weapons, ammunition and other materials from 269 shelters and 53 caves in the region. The operation in Haftanin region was launched on June 16 to ensure the safety of the Turkish people and borders by neutralizing the threat of PKK and other terrorist groups. Ankara claims PKK is responsible for the deaths of 40,000 people, including women, children and infants. Turkey has warned Greece of painful consequences if it does not enter talks over the eastern Mediterranean Sea. Talking to reporters in Ankara, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey has political, economic and military might needed to cast off immoral maps. Erdogan said at every opportunity Ankara expressed its readiness for an equal share as long as it is just and fair. The president said Greece does not recognize Turkey's rights. Earlier, Greece pulled out of NATO-backed talks with Turkey to reduce tensions after Ankara agreed to the dialogue. The 2 NATO members have been at odds over territorial claims in the resource-rich waters. Mexico says it has recorded nearly 123,000 extra deaths during the pandemic, along with another 67,000 confirmed COVID-19 fatalities. Meanwhile, India has registered more than 90,000 infections overnight, the world's highest single-day surge so far. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 879,000 lives and infected over 26.9 million people. More in this report.
With the US, India and parts of South America already struggling to contain the mass spread of COVID-19, the pandemic has now started gaining strength again in Europe. In the US, Florida state has urged people to remain vigilant over the Labor Day weekend and follow social distancing protocols. In Brazil's Rio de Janeiro, government issued similar warnings as Independence Day weekend sent people to the country's beaches in droves, despite mounting numbers of new infections and deaths.
I'm looking around and I barely see anyone wearing a face mask here. We are not chill about the pandemic, but we go out a little for some recreation. Go out with my daughter and the dog for walks, but we only stay for a little while and we go.
In Italy, rising numbers of deaths and new clusters have the government worried, but thousands gathered in Rome to protest against the mandatory mask wearing in public. Over in Australia too, police and protesters opposing restrictions clashed after an extension in the lockdown in Victoria. The state accounts for 75% of the country's total cases and deaths.
There is only one option, and that is to do this in a series of steady and safe steps. You can't run out of lockdown, because all you're doing is running into a third wave and we'll all be locked up again. I want a Christmas that is as close to normal as possible, and this is the only way. These steps are the only way that we will get to that point.
Meanwhile, in Asia, India's caseload continues to rise as governments find it increasingly hard to contain the spread of the disease. For yet another day, the country recorded over 1,000 deaths in a day, taking the tally to 70,626. Mainland China, with 10 new imported cases, has marked the 21st consecutive day of no cases of local transmission. South Korea's new cases are clustered around the Greater Seoul area, but for a fourth straight day, less than 200 cases have been reported.
Pakistan's COVID-19 mortality rate continues to drop as the country reported 2 deaths overnight. The health ministry says the number of active cases has reduced to 6,269. The ministry said nearly 286,000 patients have recovered across the country. It said new infections rate has also decreased as 484 people tested positive for the virus in the last 24 hours. The ministry said the total number of deaths has reached 6,342, while the number of confirmed cases is over 298,000. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. In the United Kingdom, 1 person has been killed and 7 others wounded in a series of stabbings in Birmingham. Police say a murder inquiry has been launched and there is no indication that the attacks were terror-related. Britain's Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has urged the public to stay vigilant. Police have cordoned off the area soon after the attacks. New Zealand's Governor-General has dissolved the parliament, kicking off the campaign process for the country's October 17th elections. The 52nd parliament of the New Zealand is now considered dissolved and will not meet again, but the government will remain in full power until the elections. A new parliament will meet after the general election. Advance voting will take place on the 3rd of October.
I, the Right Honourable Dame Patsy Reddy, Governor-General of New Zealand, under Section 18 of the Constitution Act 1986, dissolved the Parliament of New Zealand, given under the hand of Her Excellency the Governor-General, and issued under the seal of New Zealand on the 6th of September 2020.
Earlier, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern delayed the polls by a month in August as the country struggled a resurgence of COVID-19 infections. Now, moving on, hundreds of thousands of residents have been evacuated from the areas after Typhoon Haishen hit Japan's western coast of Okinawa. Officials said Typhoon Haishen is a Category 3 hurricane and has blasted Japan with winds of up to 100 miles per hour. Japan's government has held an emergency cabinet meeting to address the situation. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said the typhoon will bring a record rains, winds, waves and high tides. Officials said Haishen, also known as Number 10, has led to power cut and closure of factories, schools and businesses across western Japan. The government has also cancelled hundreds of flights and train services in the island country. Typhoon Haishen has come just a few days after Typhoon Maysak, one of the strongest storms in many years, to hit the region. Right groups in Brazil have warned that wildfires in Amazon rainforest have reached an alarming level. This comes as Brazil marked the Amazon Day, an annual commemoration of the creation of the present-day state of Amazonas. The issue of widespread wildfire has put Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro under renewed criticism. A group of environmental NGOs have launched a website called Defund Bolsonaro this week. The website says the government has taken the destruction of Amazon to unbearable levels. It also urges the potential investors to insist on firm government commitments to protect the Amazon. Amnesty International also cautioned that an alarming number of new fires have been detected in the region. UK's chief Brexit negotiator, Lord David Frost, says Britain is not scared to walk away from post-Brexit trade talks without a deal. In a statement, Lord Frost said UK will leave talks if no deal is reached till December, no matter what. He said the transition arrangement made for agreeing upon a post-Brexit relations favour European Union against UK's interests. EU's chief Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier said the bloc is disappointed over lack of concessions from the UK on fishing and taxpayer support issues. An 8th round of formal negotiations is set to begin on Tuesday. UK left the EU in February, but until December, it is in a transition period to reach a deal that is expected to come in effect from January 2021. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.